Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. With the NHL Draft Lottery taking place on Monday, I wanted to make a quick video, explain the NHL Draft Lottery, how it works, answer some questions that I see online a lot. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the NHL Draft Lottery will take place Monday, May 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those in Canada, you can watch it on Sportsnet. For those in the United States, you can watch it on ESPN. The lottery will be done to determine the first 16 picks of the 2025 NHL Draft. There'll be two lotteries conducted, one for first overall and then one for second overall. Shown here are the odds to win the 2025 NHL Draft Lottery. The Sharks, finishing last in the NHL, have the best odds at 18.5%. The Blackhawks, who finished second worst in the NHL, have the second best odds at 13.5%. And you can just see how everything slots down from the Sharks, who finished worst in the NHL, the Calgary Flames, who were 16th from the bottom. So, how does the NHL Draft Lottery work? So, two lotteries will be done as mentioned previously, one for first overall, one for second overall. There'll be 14 ping pong balls numbered 1 to 14 that will be entered into a lotto machine. 4 numbers will be drawn, and overall, there's 1,001 different combinations. Shown at the bottom is the redraw combination. So if 11, 12, 13, 14 is drawn out of the lotto system, then a redraw will occur. So that leaves us with 1,000 combinations, which when using alongside the odds gives you a certain amount of combinations, winning combinations for each team. So for example, the Sharks 18.5% chance to win the draft lottery with 1,000 different combinations. The Sharks are assigned 185 of them. Chicago Blackhawks with 13.5%, they're assigned 135 combinations. It should be noted that these are all completely random. So for example, if 1, 2, 3, 4 were the lotto numbers, then the Seattle Kraken would win the draft lottery. But if 1, 2, 3, 5 were the lotto numbers, the Boston Bruins will win the draft lottery. So completely randomly assorted. It should also be noted too that since there's two lotteries, if the San Jose Sharks, for example, win the first lottery, all 185 of those combinations then also become redraw combinations as well, because you can't have the same team win the draft lottery, both draft lotteries. So, for example, in 2023, the 4 lotto numbers that were drawn was 4, 5, 9, 13. This corresponded to the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks had those numbers randomly assigned to them. So, when those numbers appeared, the Chicago Blackhawks got the right to draft Connor Bedard at the first overall pick. All right, before we get into some rules, let's just get into teams with conditions on picks. The New York Rangers can retain their pick and transfer their 2026 first-round pick to Pittsburgh if the pick is in the top 13. The Rangers cannot pick any later than 13, so this is not lottery-dependent at all. The Rangers, at their choice, can either take this pick or transfer the next year, or transfer their first-round pick next year to Pittsburgh. This doesn't really matter too much with the lottery for the rest of this video, so I'm just going to work under the basis that the Rangers are holding on to their 2025 first pick this year. The Calgary Flames, however, their pick will transfer to the Montreal Canadiens if the pick is outside the top 10. So essentially, if the Flames win one of the lotteries, then the pick will go to the Flames. But if the Flames don't win the lottery and remain at 16, the Montreal Canadiens will get their first round pick. So the first main rule that I want to bring up, teams cannot advance more than 10 spots. So what this means is essentially teams 1 through 11 can get the first overall pick by winning the lottery. But teams 12 through 16, if they win the draft lottery, can only advance 10 spots. They cannot advance any further than that. So that's why there's a little bit of confusion when we look at the San Jose Sharks, where their odds to win are 18.5%, but the chances that they get the first overall pick is 25.5%. So the 7% is the makeup between the Red Wings and the Flames odds all combined, which makes up 7%, and that added to the Sharks' 18.5% makes the 25.5% that we see. So essentially, if any team from the Red Wings to the Flames win the draft lottery, because they can't get to the first overall pick, the Sharks will get the first overall pick by default. So let's see this in practice. So, little lottery simulator. Utah wins the draft lottery. What does this mean? So Utah was originally at 14. They've won the draft lottery, but by this rule, the highest they can pick is 4th overall. So, in this example, Utah goes from 14 up to the 4th overall pick, and the San Jose Sharks get the first overall pick by default. With this first lottery occurring in this fashion, the Sharks and Utah are locked into the 1st and 4th overall picks, respectively. So, for example, the second lottery occurs, and the Buffalo Sabres, who were behind Utah after the first lottery, win the draft lottery. The Sabres can still jump up and take that second overall pick. But it should be noted that Utah, as the first lottery winner, will not move down. So the only teams that would move down is any team between the second overall pick and where the Sabres were. So the Sabres would then jump Seattle, Boston, Philly, Nashville, and Chicago to get the second overall pick. And Chicago would drop down 1, Nashville, Philly, Boston, Seattle would all wind up dropping 2 spots in this scenario. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity on how the draft lottery would work in this example. All right, additional rules. So in 2022, there was a new rule that was put in place that teams cannot advance their position more than 2 times in a 5-year period. So when we look at previous winners, since this rule is in place, you have Montreal Canadiens who won in 2022. They had the first overall odds. The Chicago Blackhawks won in 2023 with the third overall odds. And the San Jose Sharks won the draft lottery this previous year in 2024 with the first overall odds. So what does this all mean? Well, for Montreal, it wouldn't mean anything in the first place, but it especially means something now because they don't have a pick in this lottery. But for the Blackhawks and Sharks, let's discuss that. So by this rule, if the Chicago Blackhawks win the draft lottery this year, they cannot advance their position until 2028 because the Blackhawks would have advanced their pick in 2023, going from 3rd to 1, and if they won the draft lottery this year, they'd advance their position from 2 to 1. So that'd be 2 times in 5 years, so the Blackhawks would be ineligible to advance their position until 2028. For the San Jose Sharks, they can still advance their position again in the future, even if they win the draft lottery this year. Why is that? Because even though last year, and in this example this year, the Sharks win the draft lottery, they would not be advancing their position either year. The Sharks had the best lottery odds and won the draft lottery. They're not moving up. So because of this, they can still advance in the lottery again in the future. And this still goes with the Montreal Canadiens too, who won the draft lottery in 2022 because once again, they didn't move up. Now, this still means though, even if the Blackhawks were to win the lottery, they can still get the first overall pick between 2026 and 2028. So for example, for next year, if the Blackhawks were to win the draft lottery in 2025 and the Blackhawks were to finish last in the NHL, they'd have the best odds to win the 2026 NHL draft lottery, which means that they can still win it because if they won the draft lottery, they would not be advancing their position. So essentially, if the Blackhawks win the draft lottery this year, they would have to finish worse in the NHL to get the first overall pick. If they finished anywhere else with them winning the draft lottery this year, they would not be eligible to move up in the lottery. So that kind of wraps up my little synopsis on the NHL Draft Lottery. I hope you guys that answers some questions, provides some general information. Here are a couple other additional pieces of information that I think are very useful for team combinations, for all these lotto combinations that I was talking about earlier. You can visit NHL.com. They have the whole list for every combination and what combinations correlate to what teams. For lottery simulators, I really like NHL Tankathon and Puckpedia. And for full pick odds, so for example, my Chicago Blackhawks, are they going to pick first, second, third, or fourth? You can see that all on NHL Tankathon for your respective teams as well. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel. I hope this made a lot of sense. I hope this cleared the air on some of the confusing rules with the NHL Draft Lottery. And thank you for watching. I hope you have a good one. See ya.